No, good. Om Vishwani Deva Savitar-dhuritani Parasuva Yad Bhadrantanna Suva. My dearest embodiments of love, my Prem Namaste to each and every one of you. Thousands of years before, during the advent of the Vedic message to Agni Rishi, Vayu Rishi, Aditya Rishi, and Angira Rishi, the unsettled and instinctive evolved human species developed structure, civilization, and education through knowledge of the Vedas. Tribes became kingdoms and societies. Instinct developed into knowledge and wisdom, and isolation turned into community. And early stages of technology and education systems were developed. The Vedas taught mankind who they were, where they came from, how to live, and most importantly, what to aim for. It was knowledge that unearthed the inner spiritual intuition that allowed for human compassion, understanding, and silent inner consciousness to awaken and evolve and serve the outer physical world through what we call life. It taught the value of a structured society with laws for the individual as well as the collective. It directed the creation of governance and leadership and guided the development of societal structures through the Varna system of vocation. A once perfect society built on dharma that was curated to evolve had once existed. But then, later, upon the decline of humankind upholding dharma, society fell into an intellectual darkness, allowing knowledge to thrive, but knowledge that was driven by egoism, by greed, power, ignorance, dominance, and self-interest. The Vedic message had been silenced as a liberator of human evolution and transformation. And thus it gave rise to a nation and a world of spiritual fear and decay and social subjugation. Then in 1860, an evolving, critically inquiring and determined Swami Dayanand found Swami Virjanandandi, the catalyst that would ignite the fire of reform within the heart of the great Maharishi. The fire gave birth to this hallowed institution 15 years later in 1875. And his humble call was back to the Vedas, which today, in simple language, is back to humanity, back to humility, back to morality, and back to wisdom. I want each of you to imagine, my friends, if it was not for the fearlessness, perseverance, determination, and dedication of Swamiji, where would our society and moral compass be as a Hindu society today? By bringing back Vedas, he shed the light on our shadowed mind and brought truth, logic, relevance, and liberation. During those dark years, Swamiji was the greatest threat to fear and regression. In empowering the people and inspiring freedom fighters, he was regarded as the maker of modern India. And the key word is modern. Through his modernity, he revived progress without the compromise of the fundamental principles that defined the very knowledge that liberated him and liberated the nation. There is a beautiful piece that I read about modernity, which is the concept of being modern and innovative, which goes, and I quote, "Modernity does not consist in the knowledge of any particular language, English or any other. Nor does it consist in the knowledge of any particular literature, English or any other. Nor does it mean dedication to any particular period of history, like the 20th century, for example. Modernity is a dynamic attitude of the mind, It refuses to be bound by time, place, or circumstance. It insists on initiative and on freedom of thought and action. It does not worship the past, but it doesn't reject it either. With a broad vision of time, tradition, and history, it values the universal constant in the variable and seeks to realize the permanent values of life in new and fresh emergent forms. Close quote. This, my dear friends, reflects the attitude, foresight, and dynamism of Maharishi Dayanand. His approach did not compromise the message or principles of Veda. Rather, he brought those principles home at ground level to the hearts and minds and understanding of a nation in need of change and in need of empowerment. If the 10 principles of the Samaj are anything to go by, it proves that you need not be a scholar to apply the principles of Veda. Neither does the message fade away with time, but rather it is relevant for all time. For him, the message of Veda was simple. Whatever is Veda. The very world of existence is Veda. The knowledge of the world of existence is Veda. And to use that knowledge for the benefit of mankind with the protection, preservation of nature and the environment without hurting any form of life is Veda. He enshrined this task to the Arya Samaj, which was, is, and will always be the proponent of the Vedic message in philosophy and social action. That's why the Samaj can never be rendered irrelevant, because its message and mandate is Veda. This is the thread that does not age with time, but remains eternally relevant if we so choose to live by its relevance in accordance with our own time, place, and circumstance. This is enshrined in the Atharva Veda, Book 10, Chapter 8, Mantra 23, which says, and I'll say it in English, this Brahma is eternal, beyond time and age, yet it arises ever anew in time and presence, as the day and night arise anew and follow each other in relation to the form and time of the occasion, close quote. Since its inception, the Samaj has always been at the forefront in championing the mission of Swami Vedanand in a form applicable to the challenges of the time. Now, my friends, 150 years later, humanity stands at an even deeper crossroads, one that is no longer local, but global. Injustice, inequality, religious extremism, gender violence, and ecological disasters threaten our shared future. In such a world, the Arya Samaj cannot belong to the past. It must belong to the future. It can be the antidote to the scourge of our time. Why? Because Vedic culture and philosophy molds us to serve in the welfare of our people and the world, enshrined in the sixth principle, which is what? The prime objective of the Arya Samaj. However, for us to belong to the future, we have to acknowledge the need to reform and re-strategize for the 21st century, without the fear that our fundamental principles will be compromised or overruled. For it is in keeping this fear that the very future of this institution will meet its stagnation and slip into antiquity. The world needs a dynamic shift, and dynamism can only come from reform. Otherwise, we shall remain stale. Think about it, my friends. Science advances and progresses because it accepts the need to evolve and reform and transform. Why? Because it is based on the inquiry of the human mind to advance and be better. Scientists did not fear change, because if they did, we'd all be stuck in the past. Thus, change and reformation allow science to constantly be relevant, fresh, and enticing. So much so that to be relevant today means to have accepted and to be part of adapting to the progress of science. Yet through all its transformations, science has not changed the fundamental principles that it is based on. The fundamental theories that define the root of science has never changed, but the way in which the principles are expressed and amplified, and the need for making life easier and work easier, more efficient and effective, have allowed scientists to constantly research and evolve. The same goes for the Arya Samaj. Maharishi Dayanand was a reformer as much as he was a revolutionary. He has left much room for us to grow, to adapt, to adjust, and to accommodate without compromising on any Vedic principle, and expressing our philosophy, like science, in a newer, fresher way that doesn't just make us relevant, but makes us modern. A reckoning force of social justice and social transformation and liberation in the 21st century. Like Bhuvneshji said, Swamiji was a solitary figure without any institution behind him, and yet he could change the trajectory of 19th century Hinduism. Today, as an Arya army, internationally based, with a mandate of universal and social spiritual welfare, can you imagine what we could achieve if we stopped just branding ourselves as Aryas or Arya Samajis and actually emulating the actions, dynamism, courage, and fearlessness of our founder, who cried not for position or status, but for transformation and dutiful action for the welfare of our world. We are here not just to ceremoniously and mechanically perform the Havan or Sanskars, my friends. We are here to translate the Havan and Sanskar into everyday living and actionable advocacy. The balance of this is crucial for a generation that seeks spiritualism and purpose beyond materialism. Across the world today, we see a yearning for meaning with our youth, with thinkers, and with seekers. And the Arya Samaj bridges faith and rationality, and as such, we have a global relevance in a fragmented world. But relevance alone is not enough. We must act, and act with an achievable action plan. It is our mission to take this way of life to the world beyond our diaspora, into the hearts of all races and to every culture. Why else do we say Vedas is universal and universal for all? It belongs to every diaspora. The task at hand is to direct ourselves to being active agents of change and transformation. And in turn, this can create ties and relations that surpass discrimination, hatred, and violence. In our response to the global agenda, we can categorize this in two ways: on a spiritual level and on a social level. On a spiritual level, it demands a deeper need and emphasis for Vedic education and life skills. Firstly, within the framework of our own membership and our children, and then to those who are not aware of Vedic philosophy, and in a way that doesn't strip them of their own identity, race, culture, or language, but infusing the respect and realization that in fact, Vedic philosophy is human philosophy, which transcends these limitations. It invites us to ask, who am I? What is the nature of reality? And what is my duty to society and the planet? Such questions, when explored with the Vedic lens, can heal divisions, inspire motivation, and cultivate compassion. And on a social level, our response demands more social advocacy, more influence in social policy, and actionable response to environmental rehabilitation, climate change and the climate justice, animal welfare, and humanitarian effort. It also demands, my friends, involvement in politics and the legal system to influence the national and global agenda and legal framework to affect policies. We are of narrowed vision if we think that politics and the Samaj are on two different ends. How else do we influence social change with civic advocacy alone? We have to engage by getting into the system and influencing it from the inside. Whether we like it or not, it's politics and the law that runs the system. Let's learn to work on influencing it rather than just fighting it. It's not about choosing political sides. It's about bringing righteousness into policy. Now, taking the above categories into consideration, my friends, Bhuvneshji, I know the Arya Pratiniti Sabha of America has embarked on a future plan. Let us make this future plan global. So it is time we adopt collectively, draft and adopt an Arya Samaj mission charter and action program that guides and directs the Samaj, its leadership and its members towards the next 20 years by aligning to goals and addresses individual, social and global challenges through Vedic ideals with a focus on but not limited to the following. First, developing an Arya Samaj global collaboration. Arya Samaj does not only belong to Indians alone. It is global. From South Africa to the United Kingdom, the United States, Guyana, Mauritius, Fiji, Trinidad and Tobago, and beyond, the Arya Samaj continues to serve the spiritual and social needs of the global community. The Arya Samaj committee should be set up between leaders of the Samaj outside of India for greater, more effective and efficient communication between the international countries and those countries with India. Collaboration on projects and a deeper global identity of one movement rather than 100 loose parts is necessary for our road ahead. This will provide better structure and accountability, and this will build a more educated and dharmic leadership. This committee will then serve on the Sarvadeshik Arya Pratiniti Sabha based in Delhi. It can be agreed that there are different social dynamics between India and the global diaspora, leading to a more diverse international community. Hence the need for an international committee. The good thing is that talks have already begun, but it needs to be actioned rather than just an agenda point. Number two, an Arya spiritual council comprising of our sannyasis and our acharyas. That should be our scriptural, ethical, and moral custodians of the Samaj, guiding leadership and ensuring that the Samaj runs in accordance with its principles outlined by Maharishi Dayanandji and Vedic injunctions. The council should serve to discuss issues surrounding scripture, commentaries, and publications, ensuring that any changes or publications are in line with the fundamental principles of the Vedas and the Samaj. 3. The education and reinterpretation of Vedic principles and Arya Samaj teachings towards a modern day approach and understanding and application, sort of like modern day commentaries. This should be guided by the council I just spoken about, as I just indicated, so that the underlying principles do not get diluted. However, this move is necessary to keep up to date with the mindset and thinking pattern of the 21st century. This involves rationalizing, my friends, the relevance of our practices, traditions, and rituals, their role and their relevance, if any, in today's world. Number 4, youth and family development programs. These should be aimed at increasing youth involvement in Samaj activities as well as strengthening the family institution at a home level. Youth development becomes critical if we are to nurture a generation that will change the trajectory of our very much declining world. Such programs must combine service, study, and social action. In addition, the creation of literature and use of AI in educating families on how to deal with challenges such as teenage depression, substance abuse, domestic violence, peer pressure, and bullying based on Vedic principles is critical. Developing stronger families and cultured, mentally strong and motivated youth will lead to stronger communities and a better world. 5, expanding our diaspora. Recognizing that Vedas belongs to all and is a universal blueprint, we must pave the way to take the message across racial and cultural borders in a way that doesn't compromise their own cultural identity, but allows them to integrate the Vedic ideals into their lives through their language. Again, the Arya Samaj is not just Indian alone. 150 years on, my friends, we must truly become diverse and prove that the Vedic value system is not limited to one particular community, but rather connects all communities. 6, alignment to, involvement in, and addressing the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. The United Nations adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development back in 2015 already. These are 17 goals which this global body hopes to achieve in the next 5 years. Goals that address challenges that we all face in some part. Sadly, my friends, we are edging deeper into turmoil than we were 10 years ago. But rather than being pessimistic, I'd like to believe in hope. Hope that we can change and that we can achieve this by not relying on the UN alone to make a difference, but through our contribution in creating a better world and a better future. We must align our objectives such that they address to contributing in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. The Vedic teachings and culture through our voice needs to be heard in the United Nations. And don't forget, the concept of the United Nations was already pointed out by Swami Vedanand long before the creation of such a movement. We need to have our voice on that global stage. Lastly, my friends, is the Arya Samaj and Vedic adaptations and responses to 3 major issues. 1, social advocacy, justice and action. Social challenges like global warfare, gender-based violence, women's rights and abuses, substance abuse, as well as social developments such as interfaith marriages, adoptions, surrogacy, and LGBTQIA+. These are burning issues that deeply affect our society, which needs a Vedic-based response and an action plan. And there is no better platform than the Arya Samaj, which stands tall in championing equality and justice. Then technological advancements such as AI and the move to virtual. Today, we stand at an intersection of timeless wisdom and unprecedented innovation. The question before us is, how should we as an Arya Samaj respond to the rise of artificial intelligence? More importantly, how can we shape its future alignment with our Vedic ideals? The Vedas advocate for knowledge, discernment, and the quest for truth. AI, when ethically used, embodies these ideals. It is a product of human intelligence, after all, enabling us to analyze vast information, solve complex problems, and reveal patterns in nature and in society. We must view AI as a tool that complements Vedic rationalism. But such technology must serve the truth, not manipulation. In the age of deep fakes, misinformation, and data misuse, we must educate on the righteous use of AI. And done in the right way, AI can lead us to the global stage in ways we could have never imagined. Through intelligent tutoring systems, we can teach Vedic philosophy and Sanskrit to global audiences. Voice recognition and translation tools can make our scriptures and the Vedas once and for all available to all and accessible in every language. AI can democratize learning, reach remote villages, and enable self-based studies, revitalizing spiritual and value-based education with modern tools. The future of Arya Samaj lies in embracing AI, but in the right way, given the right tools. Climate change and climate justice. Today, the planet faces rising temperatures, melting ice caps, floods, droughts, and wildfires. But beneath all this lies a deeper crisis: our disconnection with nature. We take more than we give. We pollute without remorse. We forget that the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the soil that we walk on are all part of our divine ecology. We all recite the Shanti part at the end, and sometimes mechanically. Yet we forget that that Shanti part is not just poetry. It is a blueprint for environmental healing. As an Arya Samaj, we have both a spiritual duty and social responsibility, and we must lead by example. We have to emphasize the promotion of a plant-based diet. And with all due respect, I am tired of hearing this debate of the Arya Samaj, whether we engage in non-veg or veg. Swamiji has said it clear in the Satya Prakash. A plant-based diet is the diet of all Aryas. This saves millions of animal lives and it reduces carbon-based emissions. We need to encourage tree planting and organic farming rooted in the respect for the soil, advocate against the use of single-use plastics and the protection of our oceans, enhance education, especially amongst the youth, on Vedic ecology and climate science. My friends, trust me, this is a mouthful in 30 minutes, but this is what we need to start achieving. Otherwise, we remain a religious institution. Swamiji was not just a religious advocate, he was a social advocate. We need to stand up and be social advocates to change our time for these kids, for these youth, so that we give them the baton in a fresh, more dynamic world which they can be proud of. But it depends on the direction that we take today. This is an example of what we need to set out and embark on to charter the road ahead. The Arya Samaj must remain just not a legacy, but a living force, a force that speaks out impactfully and fiercely. In conclusion, my friends, we must look forward to a positive future. We as a collective have all the resources necessary to take the movement to the next level. It is because the Vedas, Swamiji's philosophy, and our 10 principles are relevant that we remain alive and kicking and strong 150 years later. And that together, if we heed the call of the Sankatan mantras that were recited, we can achieve the call of Krinvanto Vishwamaryam. The Arya Samaj is not a reform movement of the past. It is a living, breathing movement for justice, truth, compassion, equality, and inner transformation. Let us rise to this challenge and help shape the next century of the Arya Samaj. May I take this opportunity to pay my sincerest gratitude to the cabinet and officials of the Arya Pratiniti Sabha of America for affording me this great privilege to address you on this milestone Mahasammelan. I acknowledge and congratulate you on the tremendous work that you are doing for the Samaj and the efforts that you are undertaking to ensuring that we become a globally connected force and that we work with much more unity, efficiency, and greater collaboration. May you continue to grow from strength to strength, and let this be a remarkable beginning forward toward the next century of global transformation and reformation for the Arya Samaj movement. With all the love, light, and peace of my heart, Om Shanti.
Many thanks, Swami Vedanand Saraswati ji. I think he didn't miss anything. We didn't miss anything. I don't know from where Swamiji gets these ideas. If you were listening carefully, he covered everything from AI to what UN is doing and what we should be doing for sustainable future. He touched every aspect and laid out a path forward for all of us. And not only for where we come from, motherland, a global future. I think he very rightly summed it up that Vasudev Kutumbakam, we cannot live in isolation. We own the whole earth as a living race, as humans. And that is the responsibility, I think, was the message and a road plan for us. Acharya ji, Swamiji will take it very seriously. Bhuvnesh ji is sitting here and listening very carefully. We have some initiatives about that. Now, before I go forward, I like to invite Acharya Varun Dev ji to honor Swamiji. Acharya Varun Dev ji. And Bahan Devi ji also.